welcome to the introduction episode of the Live Better Connected podcast, brought to you by Mobile UK. If you're interested in mobile technology, please subscribe to this podcast and tune in to future episodes. In the first of the series, we'll explore mobile connectivity in the UK and explore how our lives are impacted by being connected to mobile networks for many aspects of our daily lives. Today, I'm joined by Gareth Elliott, who is the Director of Policy and Communications for Mobile UK. Hi, Gareth.
Hi, Joe. It's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to get going with this. So before we kind of kick off and dig into the Live Better Connected campaign and what that's all about, please just give us a bit of an overview of Mobile UK and the work that you do.
Yeah, so Mobile UK, we are the trade body for the UK's four main mobile operators. So it's 3EE, Vodafone and Virgin Media O2. We essentially act as a single voice to help them deploy the sort of advanced mobile networks, 5G, 4G and others across the country. And they're investing huge amounts to do that to give us all the connectivity that we utilise and need today. I think we've moved from a world where it was very much a luxury item to now it's a necessity that we all need.
Brilliant, thank you. So this new campaign for this year is called Live Better Connected. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Live Better Connected, the point of that is that what we're saying is, going back to that point about it being a necessity, we live better because we are connected. Our lives are better because we're connected. We can do so many things today that, decades ago just weren't possible. But we also are healthier because we are better connected. So the point is to bring these together. It's an amazing technology. And as we go through this series and talk to people and engage with the world, we'll find out more and more about how actually we don't realise how well connected we are in this day and age, which is quite astounding, really.
Yeah, it is. I think technology's moved on so much, hasn't it, in the sort of very recent few years. Something you mentioned in your introduction around mobile and how life has gone a bit beyond the mobile phone. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, certainly. So a big part of this campaign is one to sort of educate people and raise awareness of how connected they are, but also how connected things are. And what we mean by this is generally what you think about mobile connectivity today is, well, I've got one here. It's a mobile phone. But as we move forward, well, actually, we've already passed sort of that threshold now. More and more things, we call it the Internet of Things, but its devices are connecting to each other. Something as mundane as your Fitbit to your fridge. But as we go forward, it's going to be industry, it's going to be factories, it's going to be your car. We've all heard about the connected car. But we've gone from a period now where I think there's 95 million connections and a population of only 60 million people. But we've also got 15 billion things connected globally, and that's going to rise to around 30 billion in 2030. So connectivity is not just the mobile anymore. It's beyond that now. It is things and devices around us.
Brilliant, thanks. And I think even when you're just saying that, I'm sitting in this room in my house thinking, I've got my mobile there, I'm on my laptop, I've got my Garmin watch, I've got a speaker there, and that's just in one kind of standard room. And although a lot of these are connected at home, of course, a lot of them can be used and accessed when we're out on the move using mobile networks, can't they? So can you tell me a little bit about kind of how mobile kind of, I guess, affects and informs what we do out of the home in terms of lifestyle? How big has mobile become beyond the mobile phone? What else does it enable us to do?
Certainly. Well, I think it's an interesting thing because a lot of people think of mobile connectivity almost as if it's magic. They only really notice it if your phone isn't working, or if it's slow, or if you're in a not spot, which are becoming less and less as we become more and more dependent on it. But we think of it just as a mobile phone. But if you think of an ambulance going around, you don't see a cable hanging out the back of it. That ambulance will be connected and all its devices inside via mobile connectivity. Even, as I say, what your personal use, go for a run, you've probably got either a connected watch, or you may have a Fitbit, which you upload your details to Strava when you've finished. But again, that's based on that mobile connectivity you have with your phone. But again, looking at that, it's moving forward now that at the moment you almost need your mobile phone with your Fitbit. But actually, as we move forward, where those devices are going to have connectivity to themselves, so you won't need that phone, but it's still mobile connectivity. So a big part of what we want to do here is really sort of raise that awareness of our necessity and our need for mobile connectivity. But fundamentally, and I think this is important here, is the infrastructure behind it. This invisible infrastructure that sits on top of buildings, is monopoles that look like street lamps, or it's base stations in the countryside. They're all there doing an amazing job keeping us connected. And most of the time, we haven't got a clue that they're even there. But actually, these are important parts of our infrastructure.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you bring up mobile infrastructure. And also, like you said, when we kind of expect our mobile to work by magic, I think when we're out and about. So obviously this infrastructure is absolutely key to, I guess, not just being connected today, but in the future. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of the work that needs to happen in terms of mobile infrastructure to make sure that we stay connected in the future?
Yeah, certainly. Now, most people, I think, you generally wouldn't come into in contact with that infrastructure. Sometimes the only time you will know it's there is as I say, if you spot it out on top of a building, or actually you get a planning application that comes through for a new piece of infrastructure. But if your phone works, you might wonder why you've got that. But actually, we are building in capacity into the system to ensure that not only your mobiles work today, but as we say, the vast majority of things that are going to be connected are going to be these devices. And we have to build that infrastructure to ensure that you have, one, a reliable and good connection, but also that we build in that capacity for the future device connectivity that we're talking about. And part of this campaign that we're doing is Live Better Connected. We want to run a challenge, really, to actually challenge people to understand and realize how connected they are. We've done quite a bit of sort of research on this, and we're quite excited to get started with this campaign. But generally, when you ask people, they'll come in the low figures. But when you actually go through and look at what you've got in your home, what you have around you, what you connect to when you're out and about, your laptop to the local Wi-Fi, or you tether it to your phone, you suddenly realize there's a lot more there than you may have thought. But equally, understanding that, it's understanding why we as an industry are doing what we're doing with putting that infrastructure up there, why those planning applications are coming in, but why it is actually necessary that you have that infrastructure, and why, having a good signal, a good, reliable, strong signal is important. That mast out there that you didn't know was there is actually a really strong part of your everyday life.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's interesting to hear because, as you say, we don't necessarily always think about it. We think about what we can do with our mobile, maybe, but less so about how it kind of works in the background. Just on the point of view of things that mobile enables us to do and how it has changed our lives, I suppose. You mentioned one example earlier about the ambulance, connected ambulances. What other kind of examples have you got that kind of just, I suppose, build the bigger picture about what mobile is allowing us to do beyond the mobile phone?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, possibly the biggest change in how we connect, or how we realized how connected we want to be, was actually during the pandemic, when suddenly we had to work from home. We had to get our laptops up. We got used to video calling, but we also started to rely on applications even more so. Now, a lot of people may just think, well, applications, my banking application, my Uber, my online shopping accounts. But actually, things like GP consultations have become the norm now. You have to, if you want to speak to your GP, often you're asked to do that over a video connection with your GP. Now, some of us might, say, well, why can't I go in? But for some of us, actually, in rural areas or immobile and we can't get out, this is a lifeline to their doctors and their medical professionals, or their social care workers, or even loneliness to family members and others. And for that's now become an essential part of our life. And equally, it means places that didn't necessarily have great connections to other places, physical connections, now have the ability to actually be part of everyday society.
Another topic that I wanted to pick up on was digital inclusion, because that's been very much reported in the media. And we know it's something that, from a kind of governmental perspective, that's a real hot topic at the moment. And I'm really interested in understanding a bit more about the role that mobile plays in tackling digital poverty.
mobile is becoming more and more important in this space. When people think of digital inclusion, the focus has always been on broadband and fixed connectivity. But what we've in our own statistics, and actually we're drawing up our own report and commissioned that, and some of the facts that are coming back on that show that mobile connectivity, mobile only homes are growing and growing in prevalence. I think we're around 15% of all homes in the UK are mobile only, and that means it's the only way people can access the internet.
Do you think that is that going to
Equally,
grow? Well, sorry.
yes, I mean, what's fascinating about that is if you look at the demographics behind that, why is it certain people are mobile, and the young especially rely far more on their mobiles than other parts of society. But equally, it's those who don't access into that side of things, such as the elderly, who have many different reasons why they don't. They don't necessarily trust the internet or have the confidence of using the internet as others. But then the especially those that are less well off, or certainly poverty is a real problem, because people find that the cost of broadband is actually quite a big chunk of their monthly outgoings, and a mobile phone and a mobile contract actually at sort of, let's say, around £10 a month, compared to a broadband of nearly up to 50. You can get cheaper, of course, but equally, this sort of, in the level of your basket of goods, mobile often looks a lot cheaper. Now, we have to caveat that, because obviously data connectivity and the amount of data you get between a contract doesn't necessarily mean that is the right for everyone. But we are finding, especially because of the cost of living, more and more people becoming mobile only in terms of their accessibility to the internet. So yes, it's becoming a far more important in that manner of things. And as we move forward with things like what we call fixed wireless access, which is the ability to have broadband via a mobile signal and not necessarily via a cable, it's only going to become more prevalent.
So explain that. How does that work? And where, I know sounds like it's in its early stages, but is that where it's all going? Is broadband going to become redundant for most of us, do you think?
No, there are both work complementary to each other, but in some places where it's hard to get a fixed signal, you may be able to have your broadband coming via mobile. So essentially, instead of having a router, that box, that sort of internet box in your home connected to a fixed connection, you put a SIM card into it and it can connect. In some areas in Wales, they certainly have 4G connected routers, but as we move forward with 5G, which can give you up to sort of near gigabit capability in terms of its connectivity, you're going to see that as much potentially another option to have in especially in sort of more urban areas, and as we go forward, wider connectivity in the rest of the country. But mobile is I think we shouldn't think of it as just fixed or mobile. It should be fixed and mobile, and we also find there are sections of society that can't have a fixed broadband connection. Think of the homeless, for instance. They're often their only accessibility in terms of the internet is via a mobile phone.
Well, and we also, I think, from my understanding, is that a lot of services that people need to access for help and support, very much going down the route of a kind of digital access only. So then I guess, without that reliable mobile connection, it's really difficult to even access kind of help services, let alone, I suppose, making assumptions around the fact that people have the skills to do it. And it's the sort of digital inclusion topic feels like a lot bigger than perhaps
And it's not
we're
just the
aware of at the
skills.
moment.
Yeah, it's not just the skills either, it's actually the other side. So sometimes services can be made available online, but they're not available in a mobile-friendly manner. And I think
Yeah.
this again, especially local authority websites, often very difficult to access via a mobile. And again, if that's how your main access or only access is, suddenly you're now digitally excluded because those websites aren't mobile friendly, and it's something we've seen from the likes of Citizens Advice, or the Good Things Foundation, or digital inclusion charities that have been saying recently, you have to look at the whole gamut of connectivity and not just your sort of laptop access. And equally, there are many other areas of connectivity that are important. It's understanding how to use devices and having devices that can connect through a multitude of connectivity options. But certainly, what we are finding is if you're not connected, you very much you become a have not. And this, in this day and age, digital inclusion is exceptionally important.
Yeah, it feels like from what you're saying, we need to take a much more holistic view of everything. It's like you obviously can't give somebody a mobile and expect that that is going to solve problems. Of course, it's not. It's so much bigger than that, isn't it? So you mentioned the report that you've got coming out. What's is that going to have recommendations? Is that, kind of what format is that going to take, and what are you hoping to achieve with the report?
Well, the report is going to be very much complementary to this whole campaign. And I think what it is, again, is about raising awareness of the role of mobile. Particularly in that report, it's about the role of mobile in digital inclusion. But it's also therefore that, if we are to have this inclusive connectivity, you also need to have that infrastructure where you are, it's understanding that that mast going down at the end of your road or wherever you might see a mast is not there because it's just a nice ideal. We'd like to put it there. It's there because it's adding capacity into the network. It's adding coverage where there may be not spots, but ultimately it's providing connectivity where there isn't connectivity, or adding the capacity to enable a good quality reception in that area. So it's moving beyond just looking at it as a sort of piece of infrastructure you don't necessarily want, not in my backyard, to actually a piece of infrastructure you need, and it's a necessity to your daily life. And that's all part of this campaign. It's about raising awareness, understanding what it does, why it is there, but equally the benefits that you get from that. And that's really important, because the benefits of connectivity are now so vast that, going back to that point, that if you're not connected, you lose out. And it can be some simple things like access to jobs, the online sites that you can go to now that match.
You have to apply to everything online, don't you? Everything is an online application these days.
Everything's online. We see more and more, retail world becoming online only. You look at the banks becoming online only. If you want access to those services, you've got to be connected. And I think, just as much as we want a post office in our high street, you need a mobile infrastructure in your streets as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know if you think at the online only, or certainly companies directing us to go online first, is, you see that everywhere these days. I know that's my experience. It's hard sometimes to necessarily get access to the help that you need through the traditional means, I guess, by telephone. So we are all becoming much more used to going online, being online for everyday solutions, aren't we, I guess? Just going kind of a bit further on.
I was just going to come back to that. I mean, it's also about looking at the physical connectivity in the same way as we do digital connectivity. Often, we look at needing a bus stop or a train station, and that's critical. Nobody would complain that. We want one there. It gets me access to jobs. It gets me access to my friends. It gets me access to leisure. It creates opportunities. It brings investment. I think we need to look at mobile infrastructure much the same way in today's age, because equally, if you don't have good connectivity in your area, it's not an area where it becomes, but most people look at their houses now and they want to have connectivity. If you're setting up a business somewhere, you want to have connectivity. If you want to have the option for online learning, you want to have connectivity. It is the digital and the physical world are now very much entwined. And again, as I say, this Live Better Connected campaign is all about raising awareness that that's what this connectivity is about, and ensuring that you understand that infrastructure going in. It gives you that opportunity. So when you do see an application come in, you look at it in those ways, and not just as a piece of physical infrastructure. It's actually a huge benefit to being part of what you need and having access to those opportunities.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think going back to what you were saying about we want to be connected, and I think we've all been in a place or an area and got frustrated when we can't get access to the signal that we want to perform the task that we're doing. And certainly in this, in this world where we can do meetings on the move and all of that kind of thing, I think we've become, the expectation is that we should be able to get that signal, that we should be able to be connected when we want to go about our daily lives, because it has kind of penetrated every aspect of what we do. Going back to
And
the Live
it
Better.
would be remiss of me. It would be remiss of me, Joe, not to sort of explain what the industry is doing at the moment. Some of the initiatives we're doing just to increase and grow that connectivity. So 5G at the moment has already reached the majority. Over 50%. Multiple operators now 50% of the UK's coverage. Equally, we've got the shared rural network, which is extending rural coverage, 4G, reliable 4G coverage to 95% of the UK's landmass. And, we're investing around £2 billion annually in extending those networks. There's a lot going in to really increase the coverage and capacity across the whole of the UK.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. On the campaign, Live Better Connected. So you've talked about the challenge. We've talked about the reports. What else is going on? What else can we see over the next kind of few months or so? How can people get involved?
Yep, certainly. We're doing a multiple. It's not just one single. This podcast is one part of that. We've got an online cityscape which we really encourage people to go onto. That enables you to look at the sort of we call it a cityscape, but it's a more of a sort of landscape with a rural area, the industrial area, a suburban area, and an urban area, and you can go through that and zoom into sort of typical daily life of how people and things work, and it really will sort of enlighten and show you where people utilize connectivity and the infrastructure behind it. We've got we have social media. Please do check all our social media accounts. We're going to be putting up lots of information and fact sheets out over the coming months. And also we encourage people to get involved, and certainly, as what we're saying is, if this is important to you, please do engage with your local council. And one of the things we really would love to see at a local council level is what we're calling digital champions. These are people at a local level who are there to coordinate and manage the digital policy, engage with operators, work through the planning systems with the operators and with local communities, so that we can ensure we can deploy not only the infrastructure, but people can understand, and also go out to communities and help people to use connectivity as well. We think these digital champions roles, they're a very necessary investment for local authorities, and they have in multiple ways, but they coordinate digital connectivity at that local level. And we want to see local authorities really leading the campaign for this as well. We as the industry, we can build this infrastructure, but again, if people equally understand and are more knowledgeable about why that infrastructure is going in, that can happen more quickly, and we feel digital champions are a real strong part of that.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds
so get
good.
involved and follow up, and also following what we're doing.
Brilliant. Thank you, Gareth. I think that's all for this introduction episode to the Live Better Connected podcast. Thanks very much. It's been a really enlightening chat, and it just kind of makes me realize how much more kind of mobile, I guess, has penetrated our lives that we don't necessarily think about. As you say, we think of mobile, we think of this, but it's so much more than that. Please subscribe to get alerts for future episodes. And if anyone would like to be a guest on this podcast, the Live Better Connected podcast, we'd love you to get in touch. We're especially looking for people who run businesses who are very reliant on mobile, or, live and work very much based on accessing services through mobile. So if you've got an interesting story to tell, or you'd like to showcase your business, please do get in touch with us. You can look at our website, Mobile UK website, and the social media channels, as Gareth mentioned, for more information.